Hi, this is Stephanie with iCaucus TV. We're here in San Diego with Congressman Duncan Hunter of the 52nd District. Duncan, can you tell us about the bill that you have authored, the Warriors Memorial Protection Act?
Yeah, it's the War Memorial Protection Act, and what it does is it basically says it's one paragraph. It says you can have religious symbols on war memorials. That's it. It's not 2,000 pages. It's 2 pages, and that's what it says. Extremely simple. If a family wants a cross, a Star of David, a Wiccan symbol, you can have whatever you want. That's freedom of religion, and it's not to be impeded by the judicial branch or by the U.S. Congress. So that's what this bill does. And its aim is to keep Mount Soledad's cross there as it is, as a war memorial, and to keep crosses in the U.S. wherever they may be as war memorials or on war memorials.
Okay, and with the passing of this bill, will this prevent all of the lawsuits, the frivolous lawsuits? Will it surpass the Ninth Circuit court?
No.
Sorry.
The answer is no. What it's probably going to do, though, what our aim to do here is do as much as we can legislatively, and this is as much as I can do legislatively to try to save crosses as war memorials. What it will do is give the Supreme Court a reference to go to as they rule on the Ninth Circuit's misguided opinion. So the Supreme Court can say, if they choose to, they can use this congressional act as one of their stepping stones to come to a conclusion that war memorials can be crosses of any size, of any shape, and that is freedom of religion, especially on war memorials. So that's what it's intended to do. I don't think it's going to stop. Frankly, it's impossible to stop lawyers from suing. There's no way that's ever going to happen. But what we can do is give good judges kind of stepping stones and the ability to reference congressional acts to come to the what I think is the right decision, which is to keep the cross.
Okay, and what kind of support do you have in Congress as far as sponsorship and people that have signed on? Do you feel like you will get this bill passed?
I think that we will, yeah. In fact, we just had this Republican retreat in Baltimore. Newt Gingrich mentioned this bill as one of the ones to get onto, so that's very helpful. A lot of members are getting onto it because, once more, it's so simple. Just saying a war memorial can have a religious symbol on it, it's going to be hard to find anybody who really disagrees with that. Whether you're liberal or conservative, war memorials can have religious symbols, period. So that's it. So I think it's pretty simple, and it's going to be able to be passed, even in that crazy Senate. I think they're going to look at this and say, hey, this isn't something that we need to fight with. Let's get this through, and that we'll have enough co-sponsors in the House of Representatives to bring it up for a vote, whether it's the leadership wants to or not. But we have leadership support too on this.
That's wonderful. And with that, what can we as citizens do to help support you and this bill?
Call your congresspeople. That's the biggest thing. Contact them, call them, put pressure on them. But just say, one of the things too is call up your local congressperson and say, hey, thanks for standing strong on these things. And by the way, there's this other bill called the War Memorial Protection Act. Get on that, please, and hopefully they will do it.
Does it have an HR number at this point?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, so we'll be looking for the HR number and make sure that we get that out so that they can target it directly.
In the next week or so, we'll probably have an HR number.
Congress has just changed. You've just started the 112th Congress, and I know there's been not a lot of time in there. How do you feel the direction of this 112th Congress is going to go?
I think it's already going great. In fact, we started off just with the rules that actually govern the House of Representatives. We started off making this, literally, everybody says this, but this is now the most accountable, most transparent Congress in a long time. We started off by reading the U.S. Constitution for the very first time in history on the House floor. We've already made changes for the length that bills have to be open for the public to look at, and other congresspeople too. No more passing bills after 3 hours of debate. It has to be up on the internet for 72 hours minimum to be able to even get voted on. We're going to have what's called open rules on bills so that bills can be amended. So if you want to cut funding, you can vote to cut funding on the House floor in front of everybody. If you want to add spending to something, say a national security item, you can amend it that way too, and it gets a a fair and open vote on the House floor. Everything's going to be coming from committees now, as opposed to Nancy Pelosi's office down. It's going to be coming up from smaller subcommittees moving up, which is a very big change. It's inside baseball, but what that means is those representatives who represent the American people, as opposed to Nancy Pelosi or even John Boehner, the American representatives, those are going to be the actual people writing these pieces of legislation that then move upward into Congress. So it's grassroots bill making, if you will, from the bottom up. That's a huge change. The way that things have always worked is it has come down from Nancy Pelosi, and she said, we're going to vote on this. Your committee is going to have this bill that my office wrote. Not anymore. So these are all great things that basically, whether you're on one side or the other, what it shows is we're going to be accountable, we're going to be transparent, and we're going to be accessible to the American people. And those are the three things that nobody can argue with.
That's absolutely wonderful, and it's, I'm sure, great to hear for our grassroots iCaucus people and nationwide that the policies have changed and the most ethical, most transparent Congress is now in place.
And we probably have the most unethical, untransparent executive branch administration that we've had in a long time. I mean, this has been like Darrell Issa said, we have given this administration so much money. Money breeds corruptness, and that's what we're going to have to be looking at. And that's one thing that Darrell Issa and every committee now is actually stressing oversight, whether it's armed services, education, energy and commerce. Oversight's now going to be a big role of every committee, which has been lacking, frankly, in the last decade. There hasn't been oversight over the executive branch. That's going to start taking place now for everybody, from me to everybody else. We're going to be looking at, hey, why are we giving them so much money when they're just spending this on basically pet projects for themselves? The worst earmarkers in America are now parts of the executive branch and the administration, including DOD, DOE, all of these different groups. They're earmarkers now. I mean, they're actually picking their pet projects and giving them money. So we're going to stop that.
I wanted to talk to you about the tragedy in Arizona, and I think we all felt that nationwide. What were your thoughts about what happened in Arizona?
Well, first, thoughts and prayers go out to Gabby Giffords and her family and all of those victims. But my thoughts beyond that kind of started when the mudslinging started, first from the liberal media establishment and then from the right-wing media establishment, throwing names at each other, accusing each one of them of breeding a political environment that allows for this. Both are totally wrong, I think, in my opinion. This is a crazy guy, an evil person doing something crazy, and I don't think he was much of into politics either way. And I think it's you know, we're known, conservatives are, for doing the right things for the right reason, and I think when it comes to things like this, you really got to step back, even if your stature or if you're actually being impugned by the liberal left for being one of the people that causes this type of thing. I think you have to kind of step back and say, wait, I'm not even going to get involved in this. This had nothing to do with politics. You can't legislate people to not be crazy and do violent things, and that's what happened here, and it's unfortunate, but it's not a political discussion at all, period. In fact, I stopped doing press on it after one or two interviews. This is not a political discussion. I didn't know her extremely well, worked with her a little bit. She's a lovely lady, and it's just sad that this happened.
Is it going to in any way change how you interact with your constituents, or do you see it changing? You know, there's been a lot of pieces of legislation that have been brought up, or things that should be done to change how Congress people or our representatives are protected. Does it change your view at all? No,
not at all. No, we aren't going to do anything differently. In fact, since I got into Congress, maybe it's my Marine Corps background, but we've always had trained staff. We always have people at every event who are capable of stopping somebody if they wanted to commit violence, and that started from my first day in office, actually prior to that. So I think people have to watch out for themselves. It's America, it's personal responsibility, and I think if you want to be safe, you got to make sure that you're safe, but that doesn't mean that you limit or charge the taxpayers for your your own protection. Now, when it comes to possibly, you know, families getting some type of security when the member's gone, because I'm gone 4 or 5 days a week, that might be something to look into. But the other legislation that says you can't say anything mean about a congressman, it's ridiculous. It's a knee-jerk reaction. This is not excuse me, gun issue. This is a crazy person issue. It's that simple. So
any of the gun laws that are going to be proposed, as we do every time something like this happens, that is not something that you'll support?
No, not at all, no.
Okay. And now that the 112th Congress has started, I understand that you've received some new committees.
Yeah.
And I'd like to have you talk to us about the committees that you are now working with and working as the leader of.
Sure. I'm on the Armed Services Committee still, and that's still my national security is my #1 focus, even with the economy and jobs scenario the way that it is right now in the U.S. If we have another 9/11, it's going to make it even worse. So national security, then we're working economy and jobs kind of overall. I'm also on the Education and Labor Committee, and I'm on the K-12 subcommittee. I'm actually the chairman now of that subcommittee, so we'll be working on fixing No Child Left Behind, possibly getting rid of it, and making a lot of drastic cuts in the Department of Education. And I'm also on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee now, which hopefully I can deal with things like water in Southern California. So those are some issues that I feel are important: education, national security, and our infrastructure.
Okay, Duncan Hunter, thank you so much for meeting with us today. And this is Steph Jahn with iCaucus TV, here with Duncan Hunter, Congressman Hunter in the 52nd District.